Now, Nigeria's Finance Minister, Dr. Zainab Ahmed, says she does not feel betrayed by the Buhari administration for not following through on a 2021 projection that fuel subsidies would be removed in June of last year. She spoke to Arise business correspondent Rotus Odirri in Davos, Switzerland at the ongoing 2023 World Economic Forum.
I'm glad you mentioned fuel subsidies. You have repeatedly warned of the impact on fuel subsidies on our fiscal structure. You've been on several platforms saying that fuel subsidies have to be removed. You put yourself on the line back in 2021 when you said fuel subsidies were removed by June of 2022. Do you feel betrayed by the administration that they didn't follow through on that promise?
No, betrayed, no. It was a decision that was taken as a collective, recognizing the fact that due to the lingering impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and also heightened inflation, that removal of the fuel subsidy at that time will have increased more burden on the citizen. And the president does not want to contemplate a situation where measures are taken that is further going to burden the citizens. So the decision was to extend the period from June 2022 to 18 months, beginning from January 2022. So in June 2023, we should be able to exit. The good thing is we hear a consistent message that everybody is saying this thing needs to go. It's not serving the majority of Nigerians. I listened to even some of the new leaders that are campaigning for the next round of leadership in the country that are saying they will get rid of it very, very quickly.
We have another administration coming in, another promise to remove fuel subsidies in June of 2023. Do you think that will happen?
What will be safer is for the current administration to maybe at the beginning of the second quarter to start removing the fuel subsidy, because it's more expedient if you remove it gradually than to wait and remove it all in one big hug. So the idea for us in the budget is that the subsidy cost should not exceed that 3.23 trillion. So whether it's done completely 100% by June or by July or whatever, it's the process, and then the cost is capped.
Final question for you, Minister. At the budget breakdown in Abuja, which you presided over, you made it a point to welcome ladies and gentlemen of the press. And you made an interesting comment where you said you are still querying the fact that when journalists are gathered together, they're only referred to as gentlemen of the press. And we noted it on Arise TV that you made that comment. Do you think, Minister, that gender diversity has made any progress from your vantage point?
Well, that's interesting, and thank you for recognizing that. So for me, the intention is that we need to, as leaders, everywhere we have the opportunity, call to attention that there's a need for gender parity. You saw the unfortunate incident where there was an attempt to make some provision that will have favor gender parity in the Constitution, and it failed. So we have to use every opportunity that we have to speak to these issues, whether it is the press, ladies and gentlemen in the press, or any other mix of people. We have taken measures in the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning to include a gender lens not only in our the medium-term national development plan, but also in our budgets. And we have designed a framework to enable us track the performance of those commitments using reporting by emphasizing disaggregated data. We need to look at whatever sector, whatever policy we undertake, we need to keep asking how does it affect women, because that's 50% of the population. You cannot grow and bridge the SDG gaps if you are not taking care and bringing along 50% of the population of our country.
And that's the Nigerian Finance Minister, Dr. Zainab Ahmed, talking to Arise business correspondent Rotus Odirri there. And I'm delighted to say that Rotus joins us now live from the World Economic Forum in Davos. Great to see you, Rotus. And I have to say that was a really interesting interview, and for the benefit of our viewers who haven't seen it, there's a longer version. We'll be playing it throughout the day on Arise News. But let's move from the particular to the General, which is the World Economic Forum that you're there to cover for us. A warning from Davos that the clouds are still being cast over the global economy by the war in Ukraine. Bring us the top lines of what's been happening there today.
Thank you, Charles. Great to be with you tonight. Yeah, well, there was pretty much a mix of a number of emotions here. But what was being projected from the addresses that we got, not just from the first spouse, of course, from Ukraine, but also from Ursula von der Leyen, Mr. Liu He, the Vice Premier of China, and also the President of Switzerland, was unity and optimism, that of course we can get past this issue of geopolitical concerns, with Ursula von der Leyen saying that, you know, we're in it for the long haul with respect to supporting Ukraine, with also the Vice Premier of China saying that, well, there's going to be economic growth and there's going to be, you know, improvements in what we're seeing with China with their turnaround from zero COVID. And essentially, well, if you put that against the reality of what we're seeing with respect to the number of people that have fallen into poverty, with respect to the number of with income inequality not being bridged yet, there was a lot of optimism, a lot of talk of unity. That's what's being projected. But Charles, you have to benchmark that against the reality on the ground. The war is still on. It's going on a year now. In February, you know, we're still seeing the IMF and the World Bank slashing growth projections as far as the economy is concerned. It looks like we're all going to be talking ourselves into a global recession, with Kristalina Georgieva of the IMF saying that 1/3 of the globe is going to fall into recession. So a lot of optimism today with the addresses that we saw from the high-level dignitaries. But once again, Charles, you got to pitch that against the reality of what we're seeing this year.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask you this, Rotus, because obviously you're there in Davos. I mean, there's a whole procession of African dignitaries, African officials attending, including the Nigerian finance minister that you interviewed. Is there actually any tangible dividend that accrues to, for instance, African countries for attending the World Economic Forum for decades now? I mean, are there tangible investments that can be pointed to that resulted from that forum?
That's an excellent question, Charles. No, so far, I mean, if we're going to use this particular forum, it's not over yet, and we have to at least allow for it to be completed. But, I mean, if we're going to use an example, when Xi Jinping was in Saudi Arabia recently, within 2 days of him arriving, they announced deals of about worth $30 billion. That was before his trip was over. So, you know, the African nations that are here, as far as their agenda, we know that debt levels are very high. We talked about that with the Minister of Finance in Nigeria. And so foreign direct investment is topmost priority. Mr. Godongwana, who is the Finance Minister for South Africa, made it very clear that he is here to look for deals. He is here to court investors in order to try to bring some funds into South Africa. Now, of course, any investor who is going to want to put funds into South Africa is going to ask questions about Eskom. And that is, of course, the fact the state-owned power company that has been, not been able to put any power, as far as output is concerned, not been performing up to its potential. It is in high debt. It only just recently got a tariff increase, which was not what it wanted. I think it wanted a 34% increase, only got 18%. So to answer your question, we have not seen those dividends yet in terms of deals that have been announced that, look, this amount of money is coming into this particular African country. But then that's why they're here, Charles. They're here to meet with a whole number of investors. I saw Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock. They have trillions of dollars in assets under management in the United States. So a number of high-level CEOs here. So they're talking, and hopefully, Charles, before this is over on Friday, we'll have some deals announced. But not quite yet. Africa hasn't quite gotten what it wants yet.
As you said, Rotus, we live in hope. Thank you very much indeed. Rotus Odirri is Arise business correspondent, and he was talking to me live there from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland.